right, what's going on? Welcome to this episode of Creative Real Estate with Cash Money Mike. I am your host, Mike Termini. I go as Cash Money Mike out on the social media platforms, and I'm a seller finance educator inside the real estate space. Over the past couple of days, I've got to interview some of my favorite students, and this guy that I've got here today is a guy that I had ran into actually early in the year. I do a lot of meetups and a lot of speaking engagements. I made my way down to Tampa, Florida, and when you get into these meetups, you can always tell the guys that are actually going to make a run at it because these are the guys that sit at the front of the room. And this guy stood out to me. He came to the front of the room and had some great questions inside there. And I just kind of sometimes you get a sense that you're gonna stay in touch with somebody. He was part of a mastermind that I had thrown with a buddy of mine out in Raleigh in March of this year, and he was mostly a volume wholesaler, if I'm not mistaken. We'll get a little bit more into his story here in just a second, and then ultimately wanted to learn the one tool that I think everybody wants to understand is like, how do I overpay for property? How do I structure these terms where these deals can kind of pay me all the time? So I want to introduce to you my man John Gardapi. There he is right there. What's up, John?
Hey Mike, what's happening?
Hey, man, I appreciate you being here. Thanks so much.
For sure.
All right,
Appreciate
let's get right into it. Let's talk a little business right out of the gate. I know you're all business, and when I first ran into you, you had recently something that I haven't forgotten about. You had recently purchased a Facebook group.
I did, yeah.
You did. Tell me a little bit about that.
I'll tell you, I didn't expect it to be as overwhelming as it is. So yeah, we were primarily, especially before meeting you, primarily wholesaling. That's 95% of the deals we're doing were wholesaling or wholesale deals. So we wanted to get more involved with other wholesalers because we had some success over the last few years. And we wanted to get more involved in the community, partially education, but really just kind of create a community. It just so happened by chance that we ran across a Facebook group that was available for sale, and was specifically for basically first time wholesalers, new wholesalers. It's literally called doing your very first wholesale deal. That's what it was called when we bought it. We haven't changed it yet. That just being upfront, we have taken a step back from diving into that so we can um, focus a little bit more on our actual business that brings us money. But yeah, I mean, it's cool having a group and there's 18,000 people in it, so we can connect with a lot of people in the industry.
Amazing, amazing. What is the so tell me a little bit about your business. What does your business look like? I know that you've done a bunch of wholesale deals, but what does it really consist of? Is it a lean team? Is it a scale team? Um, what types of deals are you guys mostly doing as it sits right now?
Yeah, we're pretty lean. We lean on virtual assistants a lot for most of the operational parts of the business and the day to day, the stuff that's lower task and doesn't take too much skill. So there's only a few of us in the office. We've got one closer minus myself, and then other than that, I'm handling operations and dispo. So we're pretty lean, only three of us. So
Nice,
yeah.
nice. So you took advantage of coming out to see my buddy Eric Klein and myself out in Raleigh in March, and we put together a mastermind where we coupled high level sales with high level creative. Tell me a little bit about the experience a little bit about what you thought about that mastermind. What kind of stuck out to you? What didn't stick out to you? What you thought you were going to get that you didn't get, or something that just kind of blew your mind. You're like, oh wow, this is amazing.
Yeah. Well, really, you and Eric were operating in a different way than we were. Where Eric is, he's very good at a sales and marketing system. That's literally what he says his team is a sales and marketing team. And it was a process that we, you know, we weren't implementing to the level that he was. So kind of definitely opened my eyes to sales and what uh, a sales team kind of should look like, because I feel like a lot of people just kind of jump into real estate and don't have much of a process or a system. So it was very cool seeing his system and seeing the success he has. And then obviously you know, you're in your own ballpark basically. Pitching creative and doing it in a way that uh, you know really no one's doing, and was that's also you know it was mind blowing, really. The very first, when you were in Tampa, the way that you were saying things and making me then think about how to say things to sellers, it really changed just the way that I approach different deals, especially when someone either wants too much money or it's a property that deserves more money than we're willing to pay for it. So really, I mean, you both were just operating different ways than we are, and having the successes that you are having. So it made me really look at our operation and tweak the things for, I think, the better.
Gotcha. How far outside of that mastermind? Now, I know you put together a seller finance deal. We're going to break down your deal. I cannot wait to talk to you about it because you've done something inside that deal that I think gets overlooked a lot of the time. Ultimately, when you structure seller finance deals, I think there's a whole bunch of things that go to overlooked, like the principal pay down and the tax benefits for a piece of property like this if you were going to hold it. But you actually went back after the deal and restructured the deal, and
Yeah.
when people talk about exit strategies and all these different things, a real exit strategy to me is going to be, how do I get my money out of the property, right? Like the income producing strategies that everybody believes are exit strategies, like short term rental, long term rental, assisted living, or whatever it may be. I hear a lot of investors go, well, that's my exit strategy. And I go, no, that's your income generating strategy. Your real exit strategy as an investor is, how am I going to get my money out of the property? And there's two ways to get your money out of the property. You either sell the piece of property and you pay the tax, or you refinance the piece of property, pull the same amount of money that you would have pulled out had you sold it, not pay the tax, and still own the asset. So let's get into the transition for you on why you thought it was important maybe to get into creative real estate. And it's not only creative real estate, right? I mean, for me, I'm a seller finance educator. As you know, there are other strategies that I don't necessarily think are the best strategies to deploy.
Right.
I think that a lot of them come with risk, and the least risky of them all is being is by getting the seller to be the bank for you, right? Because the only real risk is that you go bad, and I doubt that you're actually going to structure a deal where you go bad on a deal that you actually put together, right? So there's an amazing benefit stack for the seller, and I think the one thing, without patting myself on the back in any way, shape, or form, the one thing that I kind of excel at is speaking to people in cran language, which is what resonated with you when you had met me in Tampa. And you were like, wait a minute, it's not as difficult as like I really need, like I think it is. Like we're kind of underwriting this deal on the way up. So let's start with your actual deal. Tell me how you found it. Really walk me through the stages of it, and then yeah, get into it.
Sure. So yeah, we got a duplex in Ocala, Florida. We actually got it from what ended up being a repeat seller to us. So we had originally bought a single family home, and unfortunately, we didn't. It was after the fact of actually buying the single family home that in a conversation he had mentioned something about taxes, where he had another property, didn't want to sell it right away because he was already going to get hit with taxes for selling the first home. And unfortunately, we didn't uncover that concern of his in the first deal, or I would have went straight to seller finance on the single family home. But I at least knew it for whenever the conversation came about for his duplex. I knew we were going right into seller finance. I was taking that, I was taking control of that conversation, and we were going to get into that. So thankfully, he gave me a call only a couple months after. I don't even think we finished the renovation on the single family home that he sold us, and he must have got the bug. He got rid of one property, and he's like, I'm so close to being free of management, and so he gave us a call, and I immediately brought up the taxes because he had mentioned it in the last call, so I felt like it was right and proper of me to bring that up first, address how we could potentially pay him over time. He can avoid the lump sum and the tax bill at that point, and he was open to it. He had actually it was good and bad. He had actually did a seller finance on he financed a commercial property that he owned at one point, so he was familiar with it, which kind of gave me a little bit of some obstacles because when I tried to use the tactics that I learned from you, he was a little too savvy, and he picked up on the interest rate and like equal payments and all that, which that threw me for a loop. But yeah, so that's how we got the deal from someone who we actually bought a property from. And again, just for anybody watching, our mistake on the first deal was that we just didn't uncover all of the concerns that the seller had.
I
So
want to I want to unpack that a little bit because I think so many people come into this space and they go, I'm looking for somebody who's in distress and somebody who has pain. And pain really doesn't always show itself as pain. Like they don't need to be behind on their mortgage payments. They don't need, you mentioned two things there that we're going to go over. They don't need to be, have a financial issue. They don't need to be behind on payments. They don't need to be behind on taxes. Um, it could literally be the pain of paying Uncle Sam, which is what this gentleman had, right? And then the pain of management that when you find the right seller at a certain age where maybe they've got a little bit of experience, it gets to be a pain point where it's like, I just, you know what? If I could find a way how to landlord without the actual management component, that would be a perfect world for me. So I kind of see seller finance as like the landlord retirement program where we get you to actually get paid like a landlord without having to deal with the contractors, the rehab, the tenants of it all, moving them in, the leases, and everything else that goes along with it. So it's a good point where if these, whether you're doing inbound leads or you're doing outbound leads, that when they come to you, they pain doesn't always present itself as pain,
yeah.
which is good. And I think you being able to pick up on the tax part of it and say, all right, this is a real issue for him. Let me see how I can solve it. So let's get into it. How did you get into solving the equation?
Yeah, so I brought up in the past how he had mentioned he wanted to avoid the taxes. I said I think I have a solution for that, um, and went into a third party story, which I didn't actually have, but I made it up. So I discussed, hey, we can manage the property, take away that stress. Obviously, by if we take title, we're fixing the property, and we can make those payments to you over time. You're still collecting an income, which he definitely expressed that he likes the income, but he doesn't. He's just ready to move on. He was an older gentleman ready to retire. So yeah, like you said, it was perfect for like a retiring landlord. So the deal was, I kind of gave him multiple options, which we've been working towards on a lot of the deals that we're doing because we lead with cash, but then we figure out the other strategies when the cash price doesn't work. So we did also discuss a cash price that didn't work for him. We ended up agreeing, we'll do the seller finance deal. Ended up so we originally were on 220 was a purchase price that we landed on for finance. I told them I needed to be at least it was 180, I believe, or lower if I was to, go, go cash. So duplex 200 we landed on. he was really adamant. I was trying to push for those equal payments, and he and I even when he caught it, I tried to add the interest to the principal, and tried to explain the best I could how that worked for him. But he just was stuck on the fact that if there's no interest, he's not making any money. So we did have to agree to an interest rate of 5%, to make it work for him. Um, Afterwards, we actually did our inspection afterwards. Condition was not as as expected. It was definitely, there was a lot of deferred maintenance. So we actually came back. He wasn't willing to. I told him I need X, Y, and Z to make the deal work, or I said it was like an A, B, and C, or an X, Y, and Z. That's what I need, and it was either I come back, we do the cash, or you're going to have to be flexible on the term. So um, ended up with a 3% interest rate, and we split up the down payment. So we gave him 5 grand, and we're going to give him 5 grand in the spring. So next March he'll get another 5 grand. So we split up the down payment. He financed the down payment as well. So yeah, we were able to split up the down payment, and reduce that interest rate to about 3% or 3%. And so now we're working on boosting the rents, and we plan to actually try to wrap it and sell it to someone else. And we're going to do that mainly because it's 2 hours away from where our office is. It's our only property in Ocala, so we're going to wrap it and not have to deal with the management of that because we just don't have the personnel there.
Yeah, you're kind of hitting you hit a bunch of different things on this deal, right? So you lead with cash. Cash doesn't work. You go into a seller finance deal. You then renegotiate the seller finance deal to get a lower interest rate, which is going to result in a lower payment for John over time. And then ultimately, because he doesn't want the management of it, he's going to wrap it to somebody else, which is a wrap mortgage, and it takes away the management. Now, John loses three of the four things that he would like to have as an investor, but sometimes if logistically, if it's too far away from you and maybe it is just a duplex that's not cash flowing super heavy, sometimes it makes sense. I interviewed somebody yesterday who actually got into a seller finance deal, almost identical numbers, believe it or not. You were at a 180 cash price that didn't work, and you wound up paying 200 on the piece of property.
Yep.
So you overpaid by in your mind you overpaid by 20 grand. On that last deal, they had purchased for 210, finished up at 230, got into it with no money down, 0% interest, and a cash flow of $1,000 a month. And it's like, well, where can you get into a piece of property with no money down and start making money immediately? But it was 2.5 hours away. And because he structured such a great deal, I think what most wholesalers kind of miss is that they don't believe that they could wholesale these deals. Well, the reality is that you wind up getting a bigger assignment fee because you've given somebody some time to make some money overtime. So you've got to find the right person to do that, and or go ahead and wrap it to an end buyer. Um, they wound up taking a $60,000 rip on this piece of property, which was roughly 4 years. If we do the math, because I like to do the math in a bunch of different ways, you're talking about 4.5, 5 years of cash flow that he would have collected if all things remained the same, and it was 2.5 hours away, so it made sense.
Yep.
Now, it's interesting that you're able to understand, everybody has their own little push button on like what's going to make them tick. And sometimes it's the purchase price, and sometimes it's the interest, and sometimes it's the timeline, and sometimes it's the payoff period. Because at the end of the day, as complicated as it seems, we really are looking for four things. We're looking to find out how much we're going to pay for the property. We're looking to find out what the down payment is going to be. We're looking to find out what those monthly payments are going to be, and then when we have to pay it off. So those are the four things that we're worried about. And if we can break it down easily inside the conversation and go, "Hey, Mr. Seller, how much time would you give me?" And they go, "Well, what do you mean by time?" and then you start. I'm getting a little bit of feedback on this. I apologize. Um, how much time would you give me? They go ahead and they answer, well, what do you mean by time? You start to negotiate the timeline, and then negotiate the down payment and move the money around to get into the deal most cost effective for yourself. Like you had gotten into it, realized that there was too much to be done, and had to go back to them and say, hey, listen, let's renegotiate this thing. So you overpay by what I really want to do is I want to get into the numbers of this thing is
Sure.
so you're at a 180 cash price. I want to talk to you a little bit about leading with cash too, because the more I do this, the more I realize that this whole idea of leading with cash is the right way to lead. I'm finding more and more like naturally in my pit, I'm always looking to structure the most difficult deal and let the ball roll downhill
Sure.
as opposed to me anchoring somebody at a low cash offer, losing the trust, losing the credibility, and trying to push the rock uphill. I prefer to ask questions that you now know how to ask and what to ask because you're fishing for a creative deal, even inside your wholesale calls, right? Somebody might call you and said, they filled out your form online, they want fast cash now, as is. I know for a fact that you are constant. It's in your head all the time because now you've got the different tools where you're like, okay. So what I challenge people to do is to actually start there and try, ask the questions, let the objections and the obstacles come where somebody says, why are you asking me these questions?
Yeah.
And the easy answer is, well, the 15 guys before you all tried to buy it at a discount. I'm trying to see if I can do the most money.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So what we're finding is that these wholesale deals are rolling downhill and falling in our lap as opposed to us taking the rock and going, well, wait a minute, I've got another way that I buy property. And it feels a little shitty in a way, right? To like a seller. They're like, this guy just tried to steal my house for 50 cents on the dollar. Now he's gonna buy it and give me more money. So I would challenge you to maybe do it in reverse. And we've come up with a little sales process it is working incredibly well. Incredibly well, more so than I had ever seen before. Because I think somebody like Eric or somebody with a scaled model is, you got these generic questions that you ask, and those questions are geared for somebody who's looking to buy.
Yeah.
So if we think about it like whether it's an inbound lead or an outbound lead, somebody coming into my store, right? When somebody comes into my store, they're looking to buy something. The difference between that person looking to buy and the person I got on the phone is the person I got on the phone, we're trying to get them to sell something. And
Mm-hmm.
the more I look at the industry, I'm going, wait a minute, like these scripts are all geared towards a sales model, like a scaled model where like obviously you've got to put a bunch of data into a hopper. You got to stay consistent. You've got to have the right closers. You've got to have the right dispo. You've got to do all these things, which is why so many people find such limited success because they see it and go, I want to do that. Let me get the sales coaching, the script, the texting platform, the list, the skip tracing, the CRM, the non-negotiable cold caller. When that person, isn't doing what I'm supposed to do, then I'm going to hire the cold call company. And ultimately, you wind up feeding the machine as opposed to you locking up a deal like this where the machine is going to feed you.
Yeah.
Right. So I feel like there's a little bit of an adjustment that needs to be made inside the industry, specifically when it comes to the sales call for real real estate, not sales and marketing, real estate, where you can kind of gear your thing, your conversation towards that. I went off on a tangent there, but um, so so you overpay by 20. Let's talk about the rental rates, right? Like where they were and then where they could be. So when he sold you the piece of property, there's a couple of things that you're looking for. And I know since you've been in it for a minute, you already know that the minute you hear that something's vacant, you're like, ching, ching, I got one, right?
Yeah.
You're like, okay, they're not getting any income in there. So, what was the story behind the actual rental units? What was he getting, and what did you believe you could bring it to?
Yeah, so pretty low, 500 on the one side and 650 on the other. Um, so in an attempt to not just completely not, to have the units vacate, we raised them to 750 each. Um, so what is that? A bump in 350 per month. So we're starting slow, and we'll see where we can increase it over the next couple months. But yeah, that's where we're at right now, 750 each.
Gotcha. Um, your monthly payment, you structured a 5% interest rate on this thing. What did that monthly payment? How did you amortize it, and
Yeah.
what was the payment like?
So it's a 30-year fixed. Best, really. I mean, without going to 40 years, I feel like that's the best we can do, especially after negotiating it down to 3%. So yeah, 30-year amortization, 30-year term. So
30-year term, so no payoff period.
nope.
That's amazing. So, in order for a seller to not give you a payoff period, I'm assuming that they have some kind of an inclination that you're either going to refinance them out, or if God forbid something was to happen to that seller, that you're going to direct the payments somewhere else. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. There was a wife and I believe a son who's supposed to be getting the payments if, yeah, God forbid this guy passes.
Got it. Amazing. Amazing.
Amazing.
So, what did the payment come out to on this 30-year fixed?
So before at the 5%, it was a little over $1,000. Um, and then after adjusting, we're at I think like 830 or something like that.
Okay, so you've got $830 a month payment. You're at a 3% interest rate, and now you've got some other expenses that you have to calculate, right? Everybody's got to pay the taxes and the insurance and the maintenance. The maintenance could be subjective, which is the reason why we both drive by properties and we're like, oh man, that's the one we want to buy because it's got some deferred maintenance. So
Mm.
it's not always the truth that people take care of their property, but we definitely have to pay the taxes and the insurance. So, what are the taxes and the insurance on this piece of property monthly?
Um, yeah, that I honestly don't have. I think the insurance came out to somewhere around $3,000 for the year. And then the taxes weren't bad at all in that area, maybe $1,800, I think, for the year.
Gotcha, gotcha. And you're getting 750 aside,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
you're right at about $1,500. So we're not a crazy cash flow heavy on this piece of property.
no, definitely
Uh,
not crazy. If we can increase the rent a little bit more, didn't want to shock the tenants too much because then I got to deal with potentially them moving out. Which just seeing the condition of the property, it's not a 10 out of 10. It's not a 1 out of 10 either. But if they vacate, then I got to deal with that renovation bill. So
gotcha. So a really great way for you to get your money back out of this deal and continue to make money is for you to go ahead and sell it to an end buyer. So explain to the people out here what exactly you're trying to do when you wrap it to somebody else.
yeah, so I'm hoping to essentially just do another seller finance deal. Add a couple $100 to it. I know that we're not going to get, it's not going to be a grand slam, but hopefully wrap it for a couple hundred extra bucks every single month. The although the one tenant, they have a family member who is an investor. They don't want to see that tenant leave. Kind of a strange situation, honestly, but they got a family member that helps them with the bills and all that. So we may have a good candidate for it, to sell it to and do the wrap. So we're in negotiation and talking with her about that. It'll allow the tenant to stay in place. We know that we've got a qualified buyer, so that we don't have to worry about taking it back at some point. So, but yeah, that's our plan.
Nice. And will you sell it for more money than what you paid for it?
Yeah, probably. I don't. We're still working out how much that'll be. Really, I mean, we don't have too much cash into it, so I definitely want to get that out with some more, and then count on that monthly. The monthly payment. We'll try to sell it for at least 25 grand more. I would say.
Gotcha. And on the rental rates that you're now collecting at 750, had you moved the tenants out, what do you think you could get there?
Um, that part of Ocala that we're in, we're probably looking somewhere around 900 to 1,000. So it's not a huge increase, which is why I kind of want to avoid renovating. And then if I dump a bunch of money to it, well then I gotta how am I going to get that cash out? I'm gonna have to refinance, and I don't want to refinance from a 3%. So
That's a great point because I think most people don't realize how much money has to go into a piece of property in order to get it there. Now, if you told me that you could go in there tomorrow and you were just being nice to the tenants, I would say John should sell me the piece of property because I would be throwing the people out pretty quickly and putting in not really throwing them out, but raising the rents to as high as I could get it to. So John is a super nice guy. If he didn't have to put the money in, but he knows what it's going to cost to get the rents out of it, and ultimately could sell it for more money and wind up, putting a bunch of cash in his pocket, and then not have the management of it and wind up literally just collecting cash. I just had a deal. Um, Believe it or not, I think I told you about that church inside the training. So Stacy and I kind of see the writing on the wall where we're going to get. I've got a bunch of pieces of property that I've owned outright, and we're going to start getting liquid. So we decided to sell the church, and we sold it on finance. We got about half down and the other half in finance. And it's funny because like your seller with the duplex, you said he was a little bit savvy. He understood that it was the interest that, he was tied to the interest, and knowing what was going to kind of make him tick as far as, right? Sometimes it's the purchase price, sometimes it's the timeline, sometimes it's the interest. We had an offer come in where the seller had the cash to buy it. I mean, the buyer had the cash to buy it outright. I bought it for 115, put it under contract for 315 in 2 years, which is awesome. Um, got a hundred got $150,000 down, and he said that the buyer wanted a 15-year note. And I said, well, at a 15-year note, the payment is going to be more money each and every month. And what he didn't realize was what he was asking to pay it off in 15 years. So what I said, well, let's just amortize it over 30. And by amortizing it over 30, the interest went up. And my biggest piece of the puzzle is that if I'm going to finance you, I want to make sure that you stay in the loan.
yeah,
So what I did was I did a 5-year lockout period, which won't allow you to refinance and guarantees me the interest.
nice.
So there's two ways around that. You could either do it on a lockout period, or you can do it on a prepayment penalty. But the prepayment penalty on paper looks like 22%. And you're like, there's never an attorney that'll ever agree to that. They're like 22% prepayment penalty. This guy is crazy. But I want to make sure that I guarantee the interest. So it works both ways, right? The way you can guarantee interest for a seller and roll it into the purchase price, and then if you're selling it on finance, that you make sure that they don't refinance you out, right, in a certain amount of time. So important to protect your interest when you're selling it on a wrap. Um, yeah, man, great deal, great deal. So what are the plans now for you? Are you guys going to do more seller finance deals? You're going to do more creative deals? What's the goal?
Yeah, we're actually trying to hold on to more properties as of recently. So my team's getting trained on really my one closer. He's getting trained on how to think and talk creative as well. So he'll be on the phones more. So I want to make sure that he is educated and pitching that when it's necessary. So yeah, we definitely want to take on some more. Like I said, we're taking on more properties, holding on more. So the less cash I can put out and the better terms, and works for me.
Awesome. About how long outside of the training were you guys before you put this deal together? Not very long, yeah?
Oh no, it's fresh. Probably not even a month. That's for sure.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of typical. I was talking to Karan. Karan was like 3 weeks out. Uh, your guy Blade just put one together.
Yeah, I saw you have an I don't know if you did the interview with him yet or not, but I saw you have that.
Yeah, I've got an interview with him. He just put one together, which was awesome. So I'm happy for him. He was we were talking about you. I was down in Miami for a little while. We were chopping it up with you.
I was trying to make it down. Unfortunately, on a Tuesday evening, I just wasn't able to swing it.
No, you're good. I'm going to make my way into Tampa again, probably early next year.
Cool.
So yeah, we'll get together. Well, brother, I appreciate you coming on here, man, telling your story.
Thank you.
Yeah, man.
So
I'm happy you guys are doing good, and I'm looking forward to getting back together with you. I met your guy you sent out to Wholesale Live.
yeah, Darius. Yeah.
Darius, nice guy.
Yeah.
So awesome. All right, awesome. I'm going to put you backstage for just a minute. Let me finish this up. I'm going to finish up this live, get out of here, and then I'm going to bring you back. I'll chop it up with you for just a minute, okay?
Cool.
All right. All right, there he is. My man, John. All right, awesome. So there you go. Another seller finance success story about a month outside of the training and put one together. Very easy to do. It's a lot easier to overpay for a piece of property than it is to try to buy it at a discount. I think if you learn this one skill set where you're constantly trying to convince somebody to purchase their house at a discount, I think you're really leaving a lot of money on the table. There are a lot of investors that spend a lot of money on different sets of marketing lists and data lists, property lists, where you don't need to buy another one list. Like whatever you have as far as property data will work. You just need to know how to go back and pull some of that money out of it. All right. So I appreciate John. I appreciate you all watching here. There will be a replay of this. There is a live webinar tonight that will happen at 6:30, and make sure that you guys are part of the Facebook group. If anybody needs a free trial into PropStream, you can go to the link in my bio on IG. You'll get a 7-day free trial. You can pull 10,000 records, and you can cancel the service. All right, I appreciate you all being here, and we'll see you next time.